Hello, Isaac Allen, Program Coordinator for Debate Kansas City here. And I'm going to be doing a video blog today about the DKC Negative Mars file. Alright, so the negative Mars file is the answer to the affirmative Mars file. Now, just like all DKC evidence, you can find this online at the blog. Just Google DKC blog. Once you go to the site, you can click on resources. There will be a password prompt that is popped up. Your coach has that password, so you can get this file online with the password you can receive from your coach. Or you can email me at allenic@umkc.edu to request the password and just tell me what you're working on and what you need. But I just want to kind of go through each section of this file and talk about what you can do with it and what's in it, so that you can have a little bit of an introduction to the negative side of the Mars debate. Now, if you notice, the file is about 40 pages long, and it's broken up into 4 sections. Now, these 4 sections correspond directly to sections that are in the affirmative space. So, if you look at this, you see that all of them begin with AT. Now, what does AT stand for? That means answers to. So that first chunk of stuff on the index is answers to, the problem, and the cause. Now, this is where you're going to find information that says the United States Space Program is really on top of its game now, that they're going to have human flights, that we're going to Mars already, so that the affirmative case is absolutely unnecessary, and that this type of space travel is absolutely inevitable. Now, at the bottom of that section of the problem or cause, there was also lots of evidence that talks about why going to space would be a waste of our time, a waste of our money. So these arguments in general in this first section you can use to answer back the first contention of the affirmative case, namely that there is a problem, that we're not going to Mars now and that we should be. This one either says we've addressed the problem and we're going currently, or that's not really a problem, that we shouldn't be going to space in the first place. Now, the second section on the affirmative, on the answers to the affirmative here, or on the negative file, is the solution. Answers to the solution. And I think this is where you're going to find a lot of evidence you're going to want to regularly use in debate rounds. The first pieces of evidence that are in that section talk about how a mission to Mars is not feasible. It says we do not have the technology. It says that the Martian surface is simply too challenging, that we wouldn't be able to land, and makes arguments like that about the feasibility of the affirmative case. If the affirmative case isn't feasible, then why should we spend a lot of money on it? If you undercut the solution, if you will, or the solvency of the case, then that would be a reason that you wouldn't want to do the mission that the affirmative is promoting. Now, there's another set of cards in there that talk about how NASA, uniquely as an organization, fails. You can use these cards to say that even though their authors suggest that we could have the technology, or that we could do this, NASA simply is not the organization that should be leading this mission, and that NASA regularly fails in its mission, is over budget, has lots of technical problems, so on and so forth. Now, the last part of the solution evidence are what I like to call many disadvantages. If you notice that there are a few there. One is the disease turn. This says that since we've never explored Mars and we've never taken a rock sample, there is a decent chance that some of these samples could have unknown viruses or bacteria that could be really harmful to life on Earth. And so the process of simply going there or bringing back rocks would spread disease, a Martian disease, through planet Earth like nothing we've ever seen. There's also on Mars a problem of radiation. Here on Earth we have the Earth's magnetic poles and our atmosphere that shield us from the radiation from the sun. Mars does not have such a luxury, and they receive a ton of radiation on the surface of Mars all the time. So if we sent astronauts there, it's likely that they would get sick and die of cancer. Whether on the mission or when they got home, it's simply there's too high levels of radiation for us to really be able to deal with. And then the last pieces of evidence in this section, in the solution section, just talk about how terrible the conditions on Mars are, and that we really wouldn't be able to accomplish the goals of the affirmative because the surface is just simply too inhospitable to human life. Now, the next section in the negative file is what we call answers to survival. Now, if you notice, in the affirmative case, the major advantage that they cite is survival, our ability to get off the rock, have you. These pieces of evidence question that advantage in a couple of ways. The first pieces of evidence say that their claims that the extinction is going to happen are really kind of ludicrous. First off, the ones they're talking about aren't even going to happen for possibly millions or even billions of years. So that's really not something we need to be focused on now. And second of all, that we are not actually going to cause ourselves to go extinct, that this is just fear-mongering by the affirmative team. The next arguments that are there, which is either Mars won't be able to solve that extinction because the same problems that we'd face on Earth we'd face on Mars, or more to the point, colonization of another planet, the way that the affirmative envision it, is simply impossible, that it's too technical, that we really don't have the capabilities to do this, and that it's just really science fiction and not scientific fact. And then the last pieces of evidence in this section are turns that I think are particularly useful. They are called the Earth turn. The idea here is if we turn our eye to space and to Mars, then what we really do is make the Earth expendable and something that we don't take care of, and it changes our mentality and makes us work. It's very similar to sort of the arguments that will be made in the Wally critique. Look for that blog piece to be put up here relatively shortly. Lastly, the last major section in the Mars Negatives file is answers to United States leadership. It is possible for the affirmative to make a claim that the United States should maintain its space leadership, and in fact, the United States maintaining leadership in space, or another way to think of that as being number one in space, is absolutely essential to all of our hegemony. Now remember, hegemony is the United States' ability to influence actions abroad, whether it be through hard power, i.e. our military might, or our soft power, i.e. our economic prowess. It says that us being a leader in space is something that cements that leadership position. Now the affirmative would claim if we don't have that leadership position in space, our hegemony is hurt, which means that the United States wouldn't be capable of solving problems around the globe. Our answers back to this is a couplefold. One, we are the space leaders now, unquestionably. We're the only people who have ever been to the moon. There's no reason that not doing the plan would change any of that. We're still seen as a leader in space. Or we can take the opposite approach, which says that if we maintain our leadership through space colonization, space exploration, really what it'll lead to is a Star Wars type scenario, wherein that we militarize space and we put weapons in space, and this has a lot of negative impacts on society and would indeed actually lead to war and catastrophic disaster that we definitely don't want to see. So the fact that we wouldn't be militarizing space would be a good thing. Lastly, we've got arguments there at the bottom that say that space leadership, the United States space leadership and general leadership and hegemony are flawed to begin with and flawed completely through, and that U.S. hegemony is really bad. So it's sort of an impact level turn that we can make. And then the last thing in the file is a capitalism link. You would be able to use this with the Wally critique that's coming up in the future. All right, well, so this has just been a general breakdown of the negative file. I hope that you spend some time reading, highlighting, and getting to know this file, because it will be absolutely essential to success in Debate Kansas City. And with that, I'll see you at the tournament.